Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you're all doing well and I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at a very special preview version of Norland, a brand new medieval kingdom sim that is coming to early access in a couple of months. Developer is Long Jaunt and the publisher is Hooded Horse. Many thanks to them for the key so I could have a look at this early. Norland is a game where you'll have to manage your noble family through generations, deal with class conflict, crime, revolt, religious struggles, economic issues, personal relations between members of the noble family, treachery, secret murders, and spectacular battles. This game has a bit of everything. I would actually describe it as a simplified Dwarf Fortress, shall we say. It's not to the extremes of Dwarf Fortress, but there is a lot going on in this game from what I've played of it. It's not just a simple case of whacking down your buildings, there's a lot more going on in the background, and it certainly takes a while to play. And it's going to challenge you. Even on easy, this game is not easy. It is there to challenge you, but you'll be pleased to know that there are loads and loads of settings, which we'll have a look at in a second, so that you can tailor it to be easier if you want. You have multitudes of options to make this game tailored to your playstyle and for what you want to get out of it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is when you hit New Game, you get the family settings screen. So here you've got a multitude of options already. Now, I'll try and go through some of these in a bit of detail, but it's more in-depth than it first seems. So the first thing is, family members, you have a choice. You can either have two brothers and a wife, so a wife for one of them, husband, wife and child, two sisters and son, two brothers, three sisters, father and daughters. This is truly medieval, and your little kingdom has multitudes of kingdoms around it, which you'll see shortly. You will have to marry off your daughters to other kingdoms with the intention that obviously that's going to build alliances. They're going to like you more. The same as you will have them marry off their daughters to your sons, or indeed your brother, or you if you're not married, etc., etc. The intention being that, again, you're building alliances, you're becoming family with those other nations, or those other kingdoms, I should say. They're not necessarily nations. So you get then options within that, so you can randomize everything. You can have unlimited talents if you want, so you can cheat a little bit. By default, you just get 3 talents. And they've got 1 each, obviously. You can see if I click through them, their skills are different. So one's got management and trade. The way it's set up is manners and persuasion are linked, trade and management is linked, intelligence and teaching is linked, combat and command is linked. You get where we're going with this. So you'll notice that up here, this guy has manners and persuasion, this guy has management and trade, and she has intellect and teaching as the higher skills. And then they've got their talent in one of those respective ones. And then it gives you your overall skills when you balance it out. You can change the look of all your characters, you can change the nationality they belong to, so to speak. There's Vans, Maka, Tanya, and Caden. Vaughn seems to be the default one that you get, but you can change that, and then the nations around you will be variable. Some of them will be the same, some of them will be different. And there is hostility therein if they are different. There's a default hostility. If you look at the details there, you can see values are peaceful. They are xenophobic towards the Caden. And they get a production bonus to the rutbagger, which is basically a root vegetable. Pig farms, herb garden, and their knowledge is nature, and they all have different ones, as you can see if you go through. So there are different bonuses depending on which nationality, so to speak, you choose. Obviously your skills, and then your characters have traits as well. There are obviously various different ones here. There's not a huge amount to choose from, but you can see them there. And then here, there's some negatives as well. So you have to have a negative, and you have to have a positive. There are less positives than negatives at the moment, but I imagine they're going to add more to this list as they go through development. I'll be surprised if they don't. We're not going to change anything here. We're going to leave it as default. but obviously you can randomize it, you can change all the settings if you want. You know, the age is automatic and depends on the level of skills, etc, etc, etc. So you could make them younger by reducing skills, I suppose. But let's move on to the next screen. Now we have to choose where we want to start. There are 3 easy places to start. This one, the enchantment up here, Silverhaven down there, and then you've got some more difficult ones. So normal difficulty are these ones at the edges, and then you've got a couple of hard ones all the way over here. The reason these ones are specifically hard is because a big nasty enemy spawns up here and then travels down the map. So you're going to be closer to the enemy spawning that's going to try and take the map. So that's something to bear in mind. Whereas in the middle, you're kind of more secure from everything, and down here in the corner, I guess you're far away from everybody else. People often seem to point towards this one being the easy start, but you know, they're all reasonably easy. They all have their benefits and negatives. You can see from the province resources what is the good points and bad points. Obviously here we get lots of farming, but not a lot of wood or iron. Here we get lots of wood, but not a lot of iron. Here we get a balance of everything, really. But this one's the easiest start, apparently. And if we click on it, and we can click next, and now we get some more options. So we get game parameters. We can choose a start scenario. So prisoner is where a member of your family has been captured by bandits, and you have to go out and get them back as soon as possible to stop them getting too upset. You can do by touch, which is rather difficult. All of your lords have been blind since birth. This is an additional challenge for experienced players. Then you've got the Hammer's Way, so your lords are renowned for craftsmen but poor merchants. And then you can just have no scenario if you want. I assume, again, they'll add more scenarios during early access. Then you've got Crisis. You can have no crisis at all. The Unholy Horde is the one that's in the game currently. That's the one that spawns at the other side of the map. Then you can have some modifiers, so fast metabolism, characters' lives unfold twice as fast, wave of fanaticism, after the war, so prolonged and protracted war has many consequences, trade decline, strength in numbers, no prophecies. There's lots of different settings you can have. Difficulty, there's a peaceful mode, so, you know, if you just want everything to be super chill, peaceful mode. Normal is kind of how it was intended to be played. Normal is still difficult, let me tell you. Hardcore, if you really want your life to be hard. And then Iron Will, well, I mean, this mode, while unforgiving, will allow you to experience the game in a more emotional way. If you mean by emotional, I'm going to be raging at the computer and banging my head off the desk, then fair enough. So lots of options. We'll just get into it, and I'll just show you the basics of getting into the game, and then, as I say, we'll hop into my save game. It's really well made, but the reason I want to show you the start is because I just want to explain how the mechanics of the game work, because it's not going to be as obvious when I hop into a game that's already set up. So, we will hit start. It's going to be paused anyway. So this is what we start with. We've got 3 noble houses, so that's where our nobles, our lords live. We've got a dormitory here, which is for the peasants. We've got a market, which is where people get their food. And this is our sort of main hall. Resources are stored there, etc, etc at the moment. Wood is from trees. These areas are farmable, so if you want to put down a farm, it has to be on one of these areas, usually near water. I think there's some down here as well, you can see next to the water. So that's like fertile ground. And then our spouse, or the queen, has been kidnapped, and she's down here at this camp of bandits, so we need to clear that. As you can see, there are various kingdoms around me, so none of them are the same nationality as me. They may have a bit of xenophobia towards me. It may be more difficult to interact with them as a result, and this will change from game to game. So previously, for example, Moon Lake up here was also Vons, and I believe this area here was Vons, but it varies from game to game. So there'll always be differences, and random events are random, literally, so different things will happen each time. If I go back to the world map, we'll do some construction first, so we need resources. We have access to a hop field, which is an early bonus for us. I didn't get that last time, so that's quite nice. And we obviously have the field for the root vegetables. Most important thing to get down are lumber mills. So as you can imagine, lumber is going to be very important for building and everything else. So we're going to stick down a few of these. The advice in the game is to stick down at least 3 of them. 2 to 3, and then also level them up. We'll just spread them out a tiny bit. The reason for that is just so they have easier access to trees in their respective areas. Then we need to think about food, and at the moment we're probably going to need to put this down. I would like to get the rye field up because it's better for them. If people eat the root vegetables, they eventually get sick. So ideally, we don't want them eating that for too long, but we will put one down. So production, currently we just have the brewery and mill. Services, we've got the tavern, we've got a den here. So this is, here nectar is sold. The selling parameters can be adjusted in the finance menu. I have no idea what nectar is. So that's new. That wasn't in my previous game. We've got the market here. Got the altar, which you need for people to worship at and things like that, and any events like marriages and things will take place in front of it. You got the warehouse, which allows for storing of resources and distribution of wages and things like that. It basically expands the amount of builders you can have. And then we've got the library, which is where you'll get all your knowledge and everything else, which we'll look at in a second. Military, you start off just having access to a barracks, which is where your military or your soldiers will sleep. You've got night patrol and day patrol flags, so you can have them patrol the city or your village. And then you've got a peasant's house, dormitory, and a lord's house. And you can have decorations and stuff if you so wish. And then along the bottom here, you've got something to manage production for all the different things in the game. So you can set limits or one-off builds, etc., etc. So you can say, I want to build 100 all the time. I want to just build 200 now and not build any more after that, etc., etc. Then you've got the market stuff. So this is your local market where your villagers will come and buy things. So your villagers get, so your peasants and your warriors get paid. And that's the daily pay that they will get, minus 25 for us, due to how many we've got right now. Then, the local market is where they will go and buy the goods they need to survive. So, food, basically. And then, they will go to a tavern and buy themselves some ale. So, ale or alcohol is very important in this game because it's what relaxes your workforce and gives them back their energy. So if you're out of alcohol, they're going to get angry pretty quickly. Statistics, all the other information you might need. This is your army setup. So you would make a new army. You choose one of your lords, your king or your prince or next in line for the throne. And then you would equip that with additional warriors. And these are their level of skill in combat, which isn't very high. So you'll want to train these up eventually. You can also hire mercenaries. So you can see down here, these are quite expensive, depending on the skill level. But obviously, they do have much higher skill levels than yours. But they do get very expensive. Because not only do you have to pay for them, you also have to pay a fee for having military units to the church. So the entire world is controlled by the church. and the matriarch of the church. And you have to pay fealty to the church for everything you do. So to have a military, you have to pay them. To get things that people want, you technically have to pay them. So if I click on any of my characters here, you will see they have these holy rings. So these are blessed rings, and you have to buy them from the holy trade caravans that come to your village. The intention being that this is another way that the church makes money, because you need these, people want them, it is what the lords demand. The lords that come and work for you or that you bring into your family want rings. And then when they want to be forgiven for sins, they have to give some of those rings back to the church. Do you see how this economy is working? The church always come out on top. So, I'm going to unpause it because we should let them start building things. One of the things we need to do is set managers. We do not control the peasants or the warriors. The lords do. So what we need to do here is, you can see our king is in charge here, so that's fine. The king will give orders to our builders. And then once the actual lumber mills are finished, we will have to assign one of our lords to manage them. The best thing to do there is assign the lord who has the highest management skill to give the biggest bonus. So this is where those additional skills come in. So if I click on them, or even hover over them is fine. Manners and persuasion, not really management. This guy has 10 in management. That's his special bonus one. So when it comes to managing people, we'll take him to manage the peasants and the workers because he'll give us the biggest bonus to production. And it's all about balance. So like any of these games, it's very important to balance your production with what the needs of your city are and have some left over to hopefully sell to the church. As when that trader comes by, you're going to want to sell stuff. The other people you can sell stuff to are the other kingdoms. So you want to ally with them, you want to trade with them. If I click on this one, for example, and go down here to trade, you can see that they sell wood and they buy swords. So our relationship isn't good enough to do it, but they would buy swords off us if we made swords. And we could sell wood. And this one, for example, again, trade. They sell iron, they buy tools. Each nation will have a different, or each kingdom will have a different requirement and something that they're selling that maybe is harder for you to acquire, or maybe you don't want to go down that route. And that changes every game. So last game, for example, these guys were selling hops for beer. And that's not the only thing you can do. So let's go back to our world for a second. Now, obviously, she is married to the king and has been kidnapped, so we need to go and get her back. But they will actually be intimate with each other, to put it politely. And they will have children. So that is part of the game as well. They obviously need to have children. And they also have their own wants and needs. So you can see the mood there. You can see the loyalty of the queen. She's obviously been kidnapped. You can see how important her husband is to her. You can see her stats down here. You can see her personality traits. Okay, low fertility, so less chance of getting pregnant. Not ideal for a queen, obviously. She's not here. She's kidnapped, so it doesn't really work. But if we click on the king, we can see loyalty, mood. We can see his inventory. We can see here the needs. Hopes for the future. Full of energy. Loved one in captivity is a negative. See here we've got the personality traits and everything. Here we've got friendship with the brother. And history we can't see. But if we go back here, you'll notice she's actually missing her wants and needs at the moment. And the brother here. Hopes for the future. Joy of foolishness. Mental impairment. Minus 50% experience gained from learning. But a constant positive thought. So that is the joy of foolishness. As you can see, there's a bit of everything here. Lots and lots of individual details. Now, all of these people can interact with each other. So if I go to the king, the bishop we don't have at the moment. The bishop will come eventually once we are big enough. And that's when we can start interacting with the church a little bit more. Then we can do education, so we can educate someone on particular areas. You'll see here we get the mix and match here. So economics is trading and management, philosophy is intelligence and teaching, warfare is commanding and combat, and then general training just teaches you in your best areas. And you have to teach children, so the adults need to teach the children. And then the social, you can spend time with someone, you can go wolf hunting, you can have a wise conversation which will educate each other, you can play some dice which will bet your rings, you can challenge someone to a duel, and, well, you can seduce people. Let me just stick a command or leader on here, one of the lords, so we put him on there because he's the highest. Now, as the game progresses, there are random events and random things will happen. For example, the lords could cheat on their partner, or the ladies could cheat on their partner, and they may have a fight, and they may get drunk and fight each other. There could be hostility between two people who want the throne. The king and his brother could have a fight where the brother wants to take over. The warriors could rebel if they're not very happy and try and take the throne. The list goes on. The peasants may become vagabonds and then bandits if they're not kept happy. You know, there's good and bad things that can happen in the entire game. And when I've just shown you that they can interact with each other here, that's not where it's limited. So as you may have noticed when I clicked on this kingdom down here, I could assign someone to do something. Now, the lords could be interacted with. So their king, Calor, I could spend time with them. I could go wolf hunting with them. I could play dice. I could try and seduce them. I could duel them. I could poison them if it was available. Or I could invite them to our place and we can have a little bit of a party, a shindig. Politics, I could invite to my alliance or ask to be invited to theirs. We could arrange a peace treaty. I could demand they become my vassal, which may not go down very well. I could make an offering to the king. I could make slander against my neighbour. I could politely demand a tribute. Or I could do an envoy visit. We could do trade. We could do dark deeds. So we could assassinate a lord. We could kidnap a lord. We could do a library robbery. We could do a hall robbery. Plunder threat. So we could threaten to plunder them if they don't do something we want. Or we could just send a guest. Send one of our lords to chill out there, chat to everybody, make some friends, drink all their booze. The list goes on. And then as the game progresses, it might be that something's going down in one of your neighbouring kingdoms and they want to ask you for help. So you'll get a little message up and it'll say, someone's threatening us, would you please send your army to assist us? And you could do that, but obviously if you do that, you will piss off the people that are going to attack them. So it's all about balance. You could just be a peaceful kingdom and try and ally with everyone. You could be aggressive and try and take over the enemies or the other kingdoms. They're not necessarily enemies at this stage. There's lots of different ways you can play this. These two, for example, have formed some kind of alliance. You see they're all one kingdom now and the line between them has become faded. So I'm not sure who's in charge here. I imagine it's these guys since that's the colour of their banner. They obviously like each other. I'm assuming it's an alliance. Yeah, alliance head it says there. So those guys have the alliance control and they're an ally of that one. Obviously alliances can fall apart. It's not all good news all the time. But obviously the intention is to spread. You don't just want to have your one little place. You want to ally and expand, or you want to take over, etc., etc., etc. You're trying to expand your kingdom and regain control. Obviously, I've got this on slow at the moment. We're not going very fast. The trader is arriving. So if we got the trader, you'll notice they have a bunch of people with them. The traders come along and they have slaves, basically. Yes, there are slaves in this game. I need to make an effort to put someone in charge of all of these. This is why I've got it on slow at the moment, so I can talk. So they have slaves, and you'll also notice that a lot more peasants have arrived. So plus 14. which means that we're also going to need to build another dormitory for the peasants. So we will stick one of these down, maybe just above that one. Can keep them pretty close together. And they'll build that tomorrow. They haven't finished building our field yet either. But we've put someone in charge of all of the wood now, so they'll start working on that. We can upgrade these as well, so it collects more. So you upgrade, and it increases the job slot, and then you get production efficiency increases. So this is someone to trade with, so we'll get our second in line, the brother, to come and have a chat. Lots of options here. So first thing is our standard goods, okay? So that's this tab here that we start on. There's our holy rings, okay? They're quite expensive to buy, but you will end up needing to buy them because you'll need to give them to people because they will lose them, or you'll get someone who doesn't have many and they'll want more, etc., 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 and they'll be jealous if someone has more than them. Wood, flour, very important. People make bread. It's healthier than eating the root vegetables. You get beer, which is better than drinking the moonshine. The moonshine is made from the root vegetables. It's like potato moonshine. It is not good for their health. So you want to make beer as soon as possible. You've got iron, which is important for building. You've got tools, which is important for upgrades and building later on. Light armor, heavy armor, various different weapons, bows, maces, spears, swords, axes. All have benefits and negatives. Some are better than others. Daggers aren't great. Shields, obviously, quite important if you're wielding a melee weapon. Medicinal salve to stop your people becoming severely ill when they get injured. Coal. Nectar. So the nectar is a substance that significantly enhances a character's abilities but can lead to dangerous addiction. So nectar is a drug. Paper, hops, rye, all things that you need to make other things. Paper is important later in the game for making books, and also it's important for interacting with other kingdoms, assuming you don't send your lord to do that. So you can send your lord all the way there if it's safe to do so, or you might send a messenger. Steel, something further down the line, requires coal and iron. Meat, another food source that is pretty good. Obviously you'll want to cook it, or you'll want the skill to cook it. We'll get to that in a minute. Herbs for making medicinal salves, nectar, flavorful ale, etc. You will need to grow that, I believe, as well. Gathered from the forest by herbalists, I should say. So you don't necessarily grow it, you have to find it. And then down here at the bottom, flavorful ale. And you have exactly the same items, so you can sell those as well. Then the second tab here you can click on is books. So knowledge is held in books, and your lords will read the books and teach themselves, and then you'll have access to that. If the lord dies, you lose access to that skill. So while the lord is alive, you have access to it. If they die, you lose it. Someone else needs to read the book. Obviously, multiple people can read the book at once, and they can teach and learn from each other, and you can also write books as well that you can sell if you wish. So we could grab that one to make a herbalist. So we would buy that book, we would learn it, and then we would build the herbalist hut, and then we would get herbs. Scaffold is needed to punish people who have misbehaved and are criminals. Keeping prisoners allows you to build a prison ward, so it's a bit like a dormitory for prisoners, and someone will keep them fed and watered. Meat, cooking, obviously quite important. And some of these are very basic, and everyone can learn them, but some of them have a language. So the language is designated by the V there, so that's what we are anyway, the whole Vons type of people who have that language. So the book is written in Vons, all of our leaders have it. The ones that don't have a language associated with it, I guess they're translated into all languages is the thing there. So that would be cooking meat, very important. Then we've got a temple, another important thing to have to build later on to make people religious fanatics, which is good and bad. Efficiency upgrades, fertilize correctly, half the amount of wood needed to fertilize a field. That comes later. And flavorful ale is something you can learn, which is better than just standard beer, but obviously requires more resources. And currently we have mines, we have hop field and beer, and we have rye field and mill. And we've already learnt the hop field and beer because we could put down the hop field. So what we'll actually do, I've kind of cancelled that, but we'll quickly buy that just to say we've done it. Let's buy herbalist, let's buy the scaffold. Let's buy cooking meat. We won't sell anything at the moment. Is there anything we want to buy? Maybe a weapon or two. So we'll buy a couple of these because the spears are pretty good. Going to cost us a chunk, but that's fine. We'll buy some of those. We won't buy any rings at the moment because we've got a few spare. So we've done that. Now I'm going to show you research and technology. So this is knowledge. So as you can see, these are the books that I've just purchased. Herbalist, Cooking Meat, Scaffold. Ryefield and Mine are ones that we haven't learnt yet that are here. And Hopfield and Beer is known by the Queen. So the Queen actually has the highest intelligence, so she learns books the fastest. So we need her back because she's going to help us get this technology quicker. Unavailable knowledge are books that we don't have. So there's, as you can see, quite a lot of books we are missing. It does at least tell you that they exist. And some things are only available in certain languages. So that's something else to bear in mind. It's good to have people that speak multiple languages, so you can learn other things. Or you get the language dictionary. So you get a language dictionary and you can teach people to speak that language and then read the other books. You see where we're going with this? So all of these things take time. You have to learn the right ones that you think you're going to need in advance. It's no good learning really advanced stuff if you can't get the basics down, because everything's going to fall apart in the meantime. Okay, I'm just going to save this and I'm going to load into my current save just so I can show you chaos. Okay, and welcome to my original game, which has kind of gone badly now. So, my king died of old age. Well, he went crazy, and well, he got old and went crazy, and then beat himself to death. He punched himself to death in a fit of rage. So he's dead. I don't know how to get the stuff out of his inventory, but never mind. His brother became king, and his wife became queen, and the original queen is no longer queen. They all have sins, various sins, and to get rid of those sins, you need to give rings to the bishop, who is now here. So this is the bishop from the religion. He gets sent once you get to a certain size. The religion aren't overly happy with me because I don't have a temple, and therefore I don't have enough religious fanatics. These are the children over here. So this was the original king's daughter, and this is the daughter of the lord that I hired, but she's an illegitimate daughter that came from a peasant that he had relations with. So that can happen as well. Not just that you get married to another lady or lord or whatever, also they can have relations with the common folk and have an illegitimate child. And that has negative connotations, obviously, depending on how people view it. If I show you my army tab, you can see that 1, 2, 3 of my military are angry. They are unhappy. That means they could turn on me and try and take over the place. The other issue is I didn't very quickly build up my military, so this is a training ground which will train up your forces and make them stronger. I didn't do that very early, and now I have another bandit camp down here after clearing an early one, and they are much stronger, and I do not have the forces to clear it. And because the bandits haven't been cleared, slowly but surely, the people around me get annoyed that there are bandits operating out of my forest. So that's not going very well either. But yeah, really fun game. Very, very in-depth. And I hope I've explained it mostly in that original sort of new game that we just looked at. And then the rest of it is sort of where you end up. And the choices you make are important. And maintaining relationships are important, even between your own lords and the children, for example. They can get upset that they've not seen their parent in a while if the parent is busy doing jobs. You need to tell them to engage with each other sometimes, sit and have a conversation, teach something to their child. Maybe the king and the brother originally both needed to do some hunting. Send them hunting together, rekindle their brotherhood relationship, things like that. It all has an effect. And obviously there's a story here. So this isn't going to be one family that lives forever. The king's dead, so the brother's taken over. The brother's going to die eventually as well. So if we look at the brother, 45 years old, means technically they are getting old now. And, you know, this is medieval times. They're not going to live that much longer. They start to lose their skills as they get old. So this guy as well, he's only 34, so he's not too bad. These guys, she's only 19, the wife, yes, it's medieval times. They married off their daughters at 14, apparently. 30 years old for the previous queen. The children are 2 years old and 4 years old. It's all relative, isn't it? But basically, there is a time limit on your current lords. So you have to have someone to replace them. And you can only have 5 lords at a time, is the other thing. So if one of your children reaches the age to become a lord and you don't have a space for them, they may well just go off and become a free lord that someone else can hire. So you'll lose them and all the skills you've taught them as they were growing up, because you constantly teach. So if I click on these, you can see Irina is going to educate them. So she will constantly educate and train up the children. And you can have different ones teach different things, obviously. So the story continues. The children take over, and then their children will take over, and it'll be multiple generations to achieve world domination. You can also see that over at this side of the map, the Unholy Horde are starting to move through. So they've cleared both of these. They spawned up there. They've cleared this. They've now cleared this and taken it over. They're just spreading. And we might survive. They might not make it to us. The others might defend well enough that, you know, they hold the line. But they could make it all the way to us and destroy us as well. There's no way I could defend against them. I just do not have the military. So, lots of different aspects. It's very involved. It's definitely something that's going to take a while to play. But I think it's really well done. Really, really well done. I've had a few fights between different family members. Vajit has tried to beat up Irina more than once when she's drunk. This disease is now spreading through the population, and I don't have a way to deal with it. So, yeah, it's a really clever game. There's a lot going on. It may look graphically very simple, but there's so much going on in the background. It's really, really well made. I'm very impressed with it. I highly recommend, if there's another demo or something as well, give that a go. As ever, I don't tell people to buy early access games, but I'm very impressed with what Long Jaunt have made here. As I say, to me, it just screams a simpler version of Dwarf Fortress. So if Dwarf Fortress is just too much for you, this might be a good game to fill that gap, because it has some similar aspects to it, but it's not quite as difficult, I think is the safe way to put it. It's not as difficult. There's not quite as much to it, but it's got similar themes. And it's probably easier access in terms of its UI and accessibility to the rest of the world map and things like that. So I think it's definitely worth giving a go. But thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this early look at the game. We will definitely have a look at this again at some point when they add some more stuff. and I'll see if I can stream it at some point, because it is quite an interesting game. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.